Hello everyone and welcome to Tackling the EOC. Today in this video we will briefly review some test-taking strategies you can use to hopefully help you maximize the 5 hours you have to take the EOC. Today I'm going to be using an English 2 released test. This is the English 2 test that students took last year. But if you're in English 1, you can just as easily use all of these strategies I'm going to share. The tests are set up in the exact same format with the exception of the essay. So let's get started. So when you first get your STAR test, it will look something like this. And you're going to notice that it's split into 2 parts. First part, writing, and the second part, reading. So I want to start with writing. When you get your test, the first thing you might want to consider looking at is the essay prompt. So I'm going to scroll down through all of the multiple choice. So you're flipping through your test booklet, and I'm going to find the essay prompt. Okay? And the reason I want you to look at the essay prompt is because it's a great time to go ahead and start off on some planning and some thinking. So the first thing you might want to look at is the writing prompt. What is it you're going to have to do? So read the prompt. We're going to go through and look at what the right statement is asking us to do. For example, write an essay stating your opinion on whether it's better to dream big or be realistic. So I'm going to spend some time just thinking about that. I've just read the prompt. I'm not sure what I want to write about just yet. I just want to start thinking about it. So the next step would be, after I've analyzed the prompt, is to start doing some planning. I'm not going to write anything on my lined paper yet. Right now, I'm just going to brainstorm some ideas and spend some time planning and pre-writing. So where are you going to do that? Well, if you keep going in your test booklet, you're going to have blank pages that look like this. Use this pre-writing page to plan your composition. This is your room, right here, keeps going, to plan your composition. So you have 2 full pages to go through and just do some planning. That's what you should be doing. Not writing on the 26-line paper, but using your time to pre-write. Just give yourself about 15 to 20 minutes to think about the prompt and brainstorm some ideas of what you could write about. So that might be the first step. Then, if you think about it, later on in the reading section of the test, you are going to have to write as well because you have 2 short answer questions. So in order to get all of your brainstorming and rough drafting done early on in the exam, I'm going to go ahead and skip down to my short answer questions. So let's review before we move on. First, I'm going to read the essay prompt and use the blank pages in my test book to do some planning and thinking. Then I'm going to skip the revising and editing questions right now, and I'm going to go to the reading section. So if I keep going in my test booklet, I'm going to come to a page that says reading. Okay, so the reading section, I know I'm going to have to answer multiple choice questions, and I'm going to have to answer short response questions. So I need to know where the short answer questions are. So I'm just going to start flipping through my book. So here I see a reading passage. It's still going. There's some picture graphics that go with that reading passage, so I'm just going to keep going. Now I don't see any multiple choice here. I see another reading passage. So that should tell me that these passages are going to be paired together. I'm going to have to make connections between these 2 passages. There are no multiple choice questions in between them. That means those 2 are going to be paired. So pay attention to that when you're going through your test booklet. Any passages that are back to back, you're going to have to pair together. So be on the lookout for those. So I'm going to keep going, and I know if 2 passages are paired, there's also going to be a paired short answer. So I'm going to go all the way to the end of my test booklet here. There we go. And I see this box, short answer number 1. So that tells me as a reader, I need to go ahead and read this question and make sure I understand what it is I'm going to have to connect between these 2 stories. So before I ever read the passages, I've already read my short answer question, which says, how are Dr. V and helping others to see and the author of A Ball to Roll Around similar? Support your answer with evidence from both selections. So as the reader, I know that I need to be looking for similarities or how they are the same. So when I go back to my passages, I can start looking for that. So as I give my first read, I can be thinking, how is Dr. V like the author of the second passage? And I can start thinking about that as I read. So read the short answer question before you read the passage. It's going to guide your reading and help you understand the connections you're going to have to make when you're reading. So I'm going to read my two passages. I'm going to take my time, and then I'm going to start with the questions. Notice these multiple choice questions only ask me to use the first passage, helping others to see. So I'm going to start with that one. Then if I keep going, these questions are asking me to only look at a ball to roll around. So that's passage 2. The last set of questions, I have to read what's in bold. It's very important. Now I'm going to use helping others to see and a ball to roll around. So now I'm going to have to answer questions about how the texts are connected. So just be looking for that. Anytime two passages are back to back, you will have a short answer and you will have multiple choice questions to do over those two passages. So make sure that you pay attention to that when you're going through your test booklet. Okay, so I'm going to answer those, and I'm going to look at these questions and see if they can help me. For example, this one talks about them being similar. That was also a question here, similar. So use those multiple choice questions to help you figure out an answer for your short answer question. Sometimes they have similar responses. So I've completed my first two reading passages, so now I'm going to keep going. And here I've got a new passage. So I've been told to read this selection and then fill in the answer in my answer document. So I read this passage, and then I have questions to do over just this one. Now if I scrolled all the way through, I would notice that I don't have a short answer over this third passage, So on this one, I don't have to worry about reading a question before. I can just read the passage and then do the questions. But if I go to the next one, this one's a poem, I can see that at the end of it, I have short answer number 2. So make sure that you look and find those short answers, okay? Because this is the time that you're going to write your rough draft. For example, in The Fox, how would you describe the speaker's attitude toward the fox? Support your answer with evidence from the selection. So for this short answer, I'm going to be thinking as I read the poem, well, how does the speaker feel about the fox? What is the speaker's attitude? Okay, so that gives me some guidance for my reading. And then I'm going to write my rough draft right here. So just like I did on my essay, I read my essay prompt, I did some planning. Now I've read my short answers and I've done some planning. I haven't put anything onto my answer document yet for writing. So I haven't done that. Right now I'm just doing a rough draft. Okay? So we've talked about reading, how to attack those reading passages. Make sure we read our short answer questions first, just like this right here. And we're going to take note of which passages are paired together so that we know. And then I'm also going to look at, are there questions that ask me about certain words that I need to use a dictionary on? For example, just look at this one. Certainty, courage, mortality, freedom. Well, if I don't know what mortality means, I need to make sure I look it up in the dictionary. So this would be a great time to get your dictionary out and look up that word. So I also want to be looking for questions that have difficult vocabulary. Let's find one more. Scroll up a little bit. Okay, maybe right here. Irregular, inactive, impersonal, illiterate. Well, right now, in this question, I already have the dictionary information. So in this one, I might not have to use a dictionary. I might want to just use the definition that they've given me in the question. So make sure we're looking for, the differences in those types of questions where we need to use a dictionary. So let's scroll back up because now we've done our essay planning and we've done rough drafts of both of our short answers. So now we're ready to go back to the revising and editing section and talk about that. Okay, so let's start with revising. First, I want to make sure that we understand the difference between revising and editing, and that's again why it's very important for you to read the directions. They are up here for you. Kayla has written this paper to persuade her classmates to be careful online. Read Kayla's paper and think about the revisions she needs to make. So 2 things I have to notice from that question. Number 1, it asks me to think about revisions. So I know that means I'm going to have to make changes or add details or make something more clear with this passage. So please make sure that you read the instructions and that you know if you're revising or editing. So number one, I'm revising, and number two, this is a persuasive essay. So as a writer, I know that a persuasive essay has to have a thesis statement and evidence to support the thesis, strong points that are specific, right, and persuasive language. So I need to be looking for those things when I read Kayla's essay. So when you're revising, you should be reading the entire essay. You're kind of like the teacher, right? The EOC writer said, here's an essay, it's not that great, it could be better, so we want you to revise it. So that's your job. So you do have to read the entire paper if it is a revision question, okay? So we've read the directions, we're going to read the essay all the way through, and then we'll answer our questions. So we've got things like, what sentence could we replace in sentence 3? We're trying to make the paper better, make an effective revision. This sentence isn't clear, it lacks clarity, things like that, okay? Now the second one, look at the directions. Think about revisions, okay? So I know on this one I'm going to have to actually read the entire thing. So that's revision. Read the whole essay, okay? And make sure we know what type of essay it is, whether it's persuasive, expository, something like that. And the last thing we want to look at is editing. Okay, remember, editing is not going to be changing sentences and adding details. It's actually going to be looking for errors in things like spelling, punctuation, grammar usage, capitalization, punctuation, all of those kinds of things. So look at the difference. Santiago has written the following paper in response to a history assignment. Read Santiago's paper and look for any corrections he should make. So in the first two passages, it said revisions. Now it says corrections. When you see the word corrections, you have to know that means editing, meaning I don't really have to read this whole passage because I'm not being asked to change the meaning of it. I'm only being asked to find errors. So let me show you an example. Number 12, what change, if any, should be made in sentence 1? So the only part of this essay I need to look at is sentence 1. So I don't have to read the whole thing. I just go back to sentence 1, I read it, and I make my choice. Okay? And in this case, you can see changes in apostrophes, it could be spelling, it could be the usage of the word, things like that. Asking you the correct way to write a sentence with a correct comma or period. So those are the things that you are looking for when it is editing. Look for the corrections. Okay? So let's review one more time very quickly what we talked about. Let's go back to the essay prompt. So I get my STAR booklet, I read my essay prompt, I do some planning in my test booklet, think about the prompt, and then I leave it alone for a little while. I go to my reading. I'm going to look for my paired passages, I'm going to do my short answer rough drafts, and then I'm going to do my reading multiple choice. I'm going to use a dictionary or a thesaurus if I need it. And once I've done all of that, I'm going to go back to the writing section. I'm going to complete my final draft of my essay because at this time I've had some, time to think about it and see what I want to add or take away. So I'm going to write my final draft of my 2 short answers and my essay, and then I'm going to do the revising and editing multiple choice. I want to wish you the best of luck. I know you'll do a great job. And I hope this video has helped clear up how you can best use your 5 hours to do a great job on your EOC. Thank you.